Hi, Deepa here. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay.
Hi, Vittal here. Hi, Deepa.
Hi, Vittal.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Vittal.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Deepa. Hello, Vittal. This is Karthik.
Hi,
Karthik.
Karthik.
Thanks for joining. Good to have you here.
Same here. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Deepa and Vittal, just to let you know, we are also live streaming this session on YouTube. So, in effect, it's a session which kind of will be recorded and will be available there.
Understand. Thank you.
Thanks, Karthik.
Sure.
Hi, Karthik. Hi, Deepa. Hi, Vittal. Good to see you all. Good afternoon.
Priya, how are you? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Priya.
Hi. Hi, good afternoon.
Priya, good afternoon.
Hi.
Thanks for joining, Priya.
Thank you, Karthik.
So Professor Nagaratna message saying she'll be joining a bit late, so she has requested that we slot her as the last speaker.
Are we waiting for Nagaratna ma'am to join and Karthik, or we'll get started?
No, we will not wait for her. She said she will join a bit late. We will get started in a little while.
Sure. Thank you. I'm actually eagerly looking forward for this session.
Yeah.
Sir, it's 4:30.
Yeah, so probably we'll wait for 1 more minute, Abhishek, and then we'll get started.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi. I think it would be good if everybody can go on mute, and we will get started now.
Okay, sir. Good afternoon and welcome to this webinar on career opportunities in cybersecurity for non-technical students that is being organized by CySecK. My name is Abhishek. I am the program manager for academic programs at CySecK. And I welcome all of you and thank you for joining us. Cybersecurity as a paradigm has evolved over the years and has its own set of applications in different domains. Given that today, especially in the post-pandemic world, we very commonly use a lot of internet and computing in our day-to-day operations, the role of cybersecurity has only increased, and its due importance has also increased in this context. So we are trying to understand the role played by cybersecurity in 3 domains during this webinar, primarily enterprise risk management, cost and accounting, and in the legal sphere. And we have 3 extremely experienced speakers, experts in their respective domains. Our speakers for today are Ms. Deepa Sheshadri. She is Partner Risk Advisory Practice, Deloitte Global. Mr. R. Vittal Raj, he is founder and senior partner, Kumar and Raj Chartered Accountant Firm and Director of Pristine Consulting Limited. And we will be joined by Professor Nagaratna, who is an Associate Professor of Law at the National Law School of India University. She is also the coordinator for the Advanced Center on Research, Development and Training in Cyber Law and Forensics. So the planned program for the webinar is as follows. Each speaker will speak for about 15 minutes, after which we will have a Q&A for 15 minutes, giving it roughly an hour. In case you have any questions that you would like to ask the speakers, please make a note of it. And at the time of the Q&A, please raise your hands one by one. You will then be asked to unmute, introduce yourself, and ask your question. Our first speaker is Ms. Deepa Sheshadri, and it is my pleasure to introduce her. She's a partner with the Deloitte Risk Advisory Practice, and she's got 24 years of experience providing cybersecurity and technology controls advisory. She has significant experience working on cyber strategy, governance risk, and compliance related work for manufacturing, technology, and global in-house centers in India. She has led multiple initiatives in cyber strategy, cyber controls transformation, and related engagements with extremely large companies. She has also contributed very significantly in women in technology and leadership initiatives. She has presented on this topic as part of IIScA, WIT, DSCI. She has also published in industry forums and is a regular facilitator in the IIScA chapter, and has written thought papers on controls, transformation, and automation related areas. Ma'am, we'd thank you for joining us, and we request you to please proceed with your talk.
Thank you, Abhishek. A very, very elaborate introduction about myself. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk to everybody on this call. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to structure whatever I want to convey into three parts. The first part is to give you a little bit of background in terms of my own educational experience and how I came into the field of cybersecurity. So that will be the first one. And the second part is in terms of why cybersecurity for a non-technical person, right? So why cybersecurity, right? So that's how I would structure the next 15 minutes. The first thing about my background, I have completed. I had did my commerce BCom, and then I went to do my postgraduate diploma in business administration in Lilo Institute of Business Administration, Chennai. So during that time, I had taken this was 25 years back. So I had taken a dual specialization with respect to finance and systems. After which I had joined Deloitte India, and as of November 1st, I completed 25 years, right? And my focus has been a focus between finance and technology, right? So right from the beginning, that's what I have been focusing on. My co-speaker Vittal will vouch this one. When I started my career in 1997 in the field of information security, there was nothing called cyber. It was all called IS audits. And IS audits were mandatory only for banks. Nobody else knew what was IS audits. And that was the year when ERPs were coming into picture, right? When I'm saying all this, I'm feeling really old. Looks like I've been in some century away, but that's how my career started. The reason why I'm just emphasizing this is just to say that I came into the field of information security domain without any core technical background. I was not an engineer. I was not I had no technical background as such. But as far as information security is concerned, what I have learned so far is in terms of if you have the ability to upskill, if you have the ability to stay closer to the business, you generally do well in the field of information security. So that's how I started my journey with information systems audit. Then we did ERP audits, and then slowly it became technology audits. And over a period of time, it's about cyber, right? When you look at the domain of cyber, what comes to everybody's mind? If we all close our eyes for a minute and think about cyber, what would come into your mind? If you can just do a quick chat in the chat box, what when you look at cyber, what is the first word that comes to you? If you can just type on the chat. Nothing comes to you when you think of cyber? Okay, cyber attacks, right? Anything else that comes to your mind? Okay, so whenever we think about cyber, we very rightly put by Vinayak or here is the attacks or the incidents that happen. And whenever, yeah, so everything ransomware. So it's all related to incidents that comes to people's mind when it comes to cyber. But as far as I have seen, this is a core part from a cyber standpoint, which talks about incident management. But beyond that, the scope of cyber is much more elaborate, right? The first part of it, the first thing that we are seeing today in the cyber world is cyber is no more a technology, just a technology subject, but it is a business. It's a business enabler. When you do, when you put the right cyber strategy in place, it can actually help you drive your business strategy much faster. If I can give you an example, if today a plant is being developed, okay, or you're trying to do a strategy to get into a new geography, the first thing that comes in the mind of boards are to see how cyber will have an impact from a business standpoint, right? So the business cyber is more aligned to the business that we are talking, and that's where a person with more of non-technical knowledge can have a good amount of contribution as far as cyber is concerned. That is point number two. Point number one. Point number two is, as far as cyber is concerned, it is about opportunities. Priya is on the call, so she can give us an update in terms of the number of opportunities that are there for cyber professionals, right? So there is opportunity. Why don't we grab it, right? And when you look at the technologies are evolution. It's always an evolution as far as technology is concerned. So everybody, there is an opportunity for you to upskill. Let's take, for example, when I started my career, there was nothing called cloud, right? But today, most of the activities that we are talking about is on the cloud. So everybody is starting afresh as far as emerging technology is concerned. No, I mean, right? So when everybody is learning, why can't you be in the race to learn that additional skills that you require? Your core can be a non-technical, but knowing the technologies can be an add-on to your skill, and that way you will make yourself very relevant as you move along, right? And the other part of it is from a cyber standpoint. There could be four parts, or from a cyber standpoint. One is to have the right strategy in place, right secure kind of a measures in place to protect your business. The third one could be in terms of being vigilant, and the fourth one could be in terms of being resilient, right? There will be cyber attacks, there might be ransomware attacks, but how well you can recover your business. Now, as far as non-technical roles are concerned, you can play a very important part as far as the cyber strategy is concerned, as well as making sure that your organization is protected. So those are two important areas that you can play with. So cyber is just not about attacks, ransomware, incident management, security operations center, VAPT, but there is a lot more. Let's take in terms of data and privacy, right? The entire data governance. For you to be good with the data governance related activities, you got to know the business. You need to know how the business flow is concerned. One part of the data governance will be a tool implementation. You may not be an expert with respect to a particular tool, but if you are a person who can understand the end-to-end business, that's where your value get added, and that is possibly the area that I have found myself relevant, or my clients and everyone have found me relevant, because I bring in a skill that is not available with a core technical person. So data and privacy is a particular domain. Privacy could be in terms of the standards. There are so many privacy related regulations. Your GDPR, it could be, the India privacy bill. It's gone, it will come back, but anything with respect to compliance to certain laws and regulations is something that, as a business person, you can actually pick. The third area could be in terms of identity and access management. Again, you will need to know business for you to implement an identity and access management system. So in many of these areas, which is not core, the detect part of cyber, you could always pick it up, right? That's a technology and we can always pick it up. So in summary, what I would like to mention is, first, if you look at cyber, it is more with respect to the business. Today, the number of conversation that happens at a board level from a cyber standpoint is tremendous. Every board meeting, there is a topic with respect to cyber that gets discussed. And if you go to the boards and you're talking about just about incident attacks and things like that, the board is really getting frustrated about it, right? So if a CISO or if a person is able to convert the technical conversation into a business conversation, that will add value in terms of what you bring onto the table. And I think a non-technical person can definitely bring onto that to the table. What is required is you will need to be having the right aptitude to upskill yourself, right? You will need to do certification. I have done multiple of security related certification and I continue learning, right? So upskilling of the new technologies, doing certification, being having a team, or when you over a period of time you should have a team which will have the right technical expert, and you will come as a techno functional expert, and that's where you can position yourself. So that's basically what I wanted to mention to you. And the opportunity is enormous. There's loads of work that is there in the field of cybersecurity. So you could definitely grab it along with some of the certification that which is easily available for you to do. So I pause here to see if there are any questions.
Yeah, in case anybody has a question, can you please raise your hand? No, ma'am, I don't think as of now there's any.
Okay, sure. Vital, you want to, yeah, what is?
We have one in the chat. What is HID attack? We have a question from Darshan Rao in the chat, and he asks, what is HID attack?
Darshan, is it an acronym or where have you picked that up from?
Can he actually explain what, I mean, HID, is it an acronym or something?
Darshan, can you please
Darshan,
unmute
can
and
you, yeah.
explain your question? Yeah, Darshan, please unmute and ask your question.
Okay, there's another question. Maybe we can take that while Darshan explains what his question is. Good cyber certification on cyber security from NASCOM has the Future Skills platform has number of certifications that you could possibly do. So that is one of the areas that is available. IISACA has quite a number of certifications from a cyber security standpoint. That will be something that will be good to take. ISC Square has certification from a CISSP standpoint. That is something that you can take. So the way you could look at it is, look at some of the basic fundamental courses that are there as part of the Future Skills program that is there, and then build upon it with CISA, CISM, CISSP. These are some certifications that you could possibly do. And definitely in terms of certification with respect to cloud, right? So the cloud providers have certain certifications. So the fundamentals is what I would recommend for you to look at in any emerging technologies. It could be IT, OT, it could be cloud, it could be quantum. Any of the basic, you will need to know the basics of a technology, and that's very important for you. You need to be tech savvy as far as entering into this field is concerned. Mitchell, you would like to add something? Please go ahead, Mitchell.
I think you have really set that tone very well, Deepa. Yes, I think as Deepa has already given you the number of certifications available, but as she rightly said, the best place to start immediately with quick, good courses is go to the NASCOM Future Skills platform, and you could find a ton of certifications being offered there. You can start with that. They could be mere certificate courses. That's still fine. If you think you want to do it on your own, there are umpteen number of videos on YouTube as well. and you can take at your self, learning pace as well. So, but you get a certificate from NASSCOM once you complete a course, if I'm right, Priya. And that's where, you can score with your employer to say, hey, yes, I have the knowledge and the certification of my knowledge. So I think the others, Deepa is covered very well. I would certainly recommend that you also go to those websites and you'll be able to find a lot of information on that.
Ma'am, I think one question that will be there in the minds of our audience is that, which has also been asked by Tawheed Ahmed in the chat. He says, what kind of career path can I expect after completing the course? I think he means the certification. And since you yourself mentioned that you didn't come from a technical background, but you have grown over the years by augmenting your skills, how easy or difficult do you feel it is for somebody from a non-technical background to evolve into that techno-functional role that you just spoke about?
Yeah, in the initial time, it is, to be very honest, first 2 years after my MBA, when I was doing IS audits, people were asking, what am I doing, right? But once I finished my CISA certification, the entire gambit changed, because I was more looked at as a at those days, information security advisor, or, from an audit standpoint. So initially, it might take a little bit of time for you to do it, but definitely from a career growth standpoint, and in terms of how you can position yourself, definitely you will have a career path similar to any other profession that you might take, right? So it's just that in the initial time, the confidence that you have, but if you're a techie, it might be very easy to pick up in terms of the security part of security aspects. Otherwise, it'll take little more time. So as far as I'm looking at it, the career path will be similar to, once you have these courses and you have the business or the non-technical background plus the certification, will definitely give you a good start, is what I would say.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And also very interesting to note that you had taken up the combination of finance and systems at a time when probably no one had thought that fintech would evolve so much that today we are a leading country in terms of digital payments, and also the role of cybersecurity invariably comes in there as well. So
Yeah,
it
correct.
was
I didn't know that. It was just that I didn't want to take marketing, and HR was the other option. So I had taken finance and systems, to be honest.
okay, fine. So thank you very much, ma'am. I will now take a moment to introduce our second speaker, uh, known colloquially as Vittal, Mr. R. Vittal Raj. He is a risk assurance and a consulting expert, and more than 2.5 decades of experience working with clients in a wide range of industry verticals like IT governance, cybersecurity, IT assurance, enterprise risk management, and risk-based internal audits. He has a lot of certifications, CISA, CIA, CISSP, and he's qualified FCA, and he wears two primary hats. He is a founder of Kumar and Raj Chartered Accountants, and he's also a director of Pristine Consulting Private Limited. He leads and manages the business and ric assurances service practice, and this goes across diverse business verticals. He also likes to share his knowledge. He is a visiting faculty and subject matter expert with several eminent institutions of repute, such as the ICAI and the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Sri Lanka, and with the Office of the CAG, the RBI Institute of Internal Auditors, and with the police with regards to cybercrime investigation. Sir, it's a pleasure to have you with us, and I request you to please share your views on the role of cybersecurity for non-technical students, especially from the accounting practice side. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Abhishek. So thank you so much for that kind introduction. I should have possibly given you a shorter introduction. I didn't know you will read out the entire thing. Anyway, thanks so much. I think Deepa has set a fantastic tone. My colleague, she has done a wonderful job. I think that makes my job easier. I'm going to follow the same format that she has evolved. So maybe start talking about myself. Well, honestly speaking, when I did my graduation, I did not get enough marks in science, which I chose. So in fact, in my +2, so they said, you can't come for science, you are misfit. So I said, okay, fine. Then my father said, okay, all these guys who are, don't pass these examination, don't get good marks, they are put in something called CA. So they put me into a chartered accountancy course. Now there, of course, I somehow passed the examination and became a chartered accountant, and it was pretty interesting. But my heart was always towards technology, even though I would never get entry into the universities of technology. So then what happened was, my savior grace was that when we were auditing, I mean, after we started our career and we started a firm, I'm talking about way back in 1988. And the first work, the major work that we got was something, a very stupid thing called as a reconciliation between the parties ledger and the control ledger. So those of you who are in accounts will understand a very simple job, nothing but, okay, you maintain one control ledger which has all the party transactions, and individual party wise balances and transactions are maintained in the parties ledger. So since, so nobody had reconciled it over years, and this was a fixed deposit record. So the company that was taking fixed deposits from the public, and that is where, they were maintaining these records, and they were completely, concerned, because both these records are not tallying. When a customer lands up and says, I lost my fixed deposit, they don't know whether this guy has already encashed or not. So this was a kind of big problem that they had. So when we were, doing this simple job of reconciliation, somebody calling out, those days we didn't have this computerized reconciliation. So we're given the hard copies, and my friend would call out and I would keep on ticking, and that's how it went. We'll identify what the differences are. Suddenly we found that one particular fixed deposit had been encashed 8 times. The same fixed deposit of 20,000 rupees. So we were kind of, little taken aback, because till that time, we thought that whenever computers handle things, everything is accurate. And as you read on many of those statements, this is a computer generated statement, no signature required. Of course, today you can trust that, but in those days, because they thought there'll be no intervention, it was done. But when we actually started probing into that, we found that one deposit holder, he has been defrauding this company by going to different branches and encashing the same fixed deposit certificate. But the icing on the cake was not that. The original check that he had given for the deposit also had bounced. So this was a kind of fraud. In those days, we didn't have cyber attacks to say, but they were frauds. And this is what really made me thinking, my goodness, computers means you can do wonderful frauds, right? And nobody can detect it, because nobody understood computers. So that is where the kickstart was. I said, I have to learn under, computers. And that's how we started the journey. And from there on, Y2K came, and we got the first assignment. As Deepa said, we also used to go and say, I am CISA, nobody listened to you. So you are an accountant, you don't know anything about technology, get out. So that intimidation itself was more what you call empowering, to say, I have to get to know this. So when we got this kind of thing, I got really enthused. And that's when I come across this course called CISA. So before that, when we really started on that. And for the first time, when I read the CISA review manual, it was the first time it was not too technical. It just had some good technology, but it had a lot of common sense connects. And that is where I found this is exactly what I'm looking for. Because before that, I was trying my hand at programming. I was doing a lot of technology, hardware work and all, but of course, good at nothing, half-baked all. But then when this came, then what happened was that they said, the professor had not come, you have to teach, because there is no other person, so you had to take the class. I said, I don't even understand anything. Said, no. Then what happened was, that made me really sit overnight, look at everything from my point of view as a non-technical person. And next day, even I didn't believe that everybody said, oh, it's such a good session. I thought everybody is pulling my leg. But actually, the big challenge was nobody understood the technical part being explained by an IIT professor at that time, including myself, and what was going on. So that is where the spark came. If you look at the board, most of these people are obviously business leaders. They do not know technology by and large. Even today, if you walk into a board, the first thing, when I address these board, they ask me, Vittal, see, I have this CISO and the CTO who come present all these reports. I don't understand whether, everything is safe or not. So far as there are no red buttons there, I am happy. So that kind of really took it to the next step. So if you can talk the business language while understanding technology, and you don't have to really go into the, the seventh depth of technology. If you simply understand the common sense behind those various jargons and how the entire technology works, you can make a very good connect as a non-technical professional to all those audience who actually are the stakeholders or the users of this technology. So that is where, if you see, many of the technical guys also fail. They don't understand business. They understand technology very well. But let us please understand, technology lives for business, not the other way around. And today, technology drives business. Again, business wants to leverage the power of the technology. Now, in all this, let us please understand one fundamental thing which rules every mind. Let us take a simple example. I'm sure all of you have opened your bank account. You have a bank account, I'm sure, right? When you opened your first bank account, did you go and ask your bank, are you a safe bank? I'm going to put my money in. You would never have asked that question, because the implicit relationship with the bank is of trust. So today, when everything has become automated and nobody knows what is happening behind those black boxes, would you bear if the customer, if as a customer you lose your money, God forbid, and you go to the bank, they say, I will check with my IT team and tell you something has gone wrong. You obviously demand immediate answers in very non-technical, simple language, saying, why is this happening? What are you going to do about it? So that's exactly where, if you see, the power of the non-technical professional in connecting technology to business makes a huge difference. And let me tell you one thing. As you talk the board's language, as you talk the customer's language, as you talk the stakeholders' language, you start moving nearer to business leadership. Because that's what they want. They want all this, jargons to be bursted and told them in very simple terms, this is your problem. And it's easily said than done, because that is exactly where you need to work hard. Because when I was a chartered accountant, the biggest challenge for me was when I go to a technology guy, he'll speak some jargon. I wouldn't understand head or tail of it. I have to immediately go night, study everything and try to make out what it is, because those days we didn't have YouTube, okay? So we had to only go browse. We had the ting tong, internet. So we had to do all that. So what typically came out was that if you start reading that, it becomes very simple. It prima facie looks scary. That's it. But once you break those jargons, let me assure you, every jargon is nothing but a glorified common sense. And if you're able to break that, you have reached that place where you are in the position of power with the business team, asking questions to the technology team. Tell me how this transaction behaves through this particular router. They are supposed to answer that. And you can independently do a black box testing and check it. Even if you don't know what goes inside the technology, you can still do an input output analysis. That's what you call as a black box check. And you can still see, okay, is it doing what it is supposed to do or doing something else? So that is where you have this big profession called vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, right? There, of course, you go start from a black box to a white box to a different kinds of testing. Today, it is one of the foremost requirements of every business. And let me tell you, while the vulnerability assessment technical testing does take technology, but the reports need to speak business. You cannot say this server, blah, blah, blah. No, you say your money in this particular account is under risk. Very simple. So that language that you use changes once you are a non-technical professional and you understand the common sense, right? And let me tell you one thing. When it comes to financial systems, today banks want more and more of, there is a huge dearth of cybersecurity professionals. And when I say cybersecurity, I would always divide it into two parts. One is the cyber fraud. For example, you go and see how the guys are looting the bank in an ATM. Well, a typical intelligent fellow will not do that. He'll be sitting in one corner of the planet and looting a bank, completely diverting all the transactions by simply playing around with the logic of the computer, of the application software. So that is where, if you see, every business software needs security or the trust foundation, which is unfortunately yet only now organizations are becoming little more sensitive about. Imagine you are driving an autonomous car tomorrow, which is anyway going to happen. Would you give your life to the autonomous car if it says 404 error on your screen? It will say no, can't drive. or we can't stop, or it simply is taking you to some other direction. You keep on shouting inside the car, doors are automatically locked. Imagine such a situation. Or still imagine a drone taxi if you are in, and it keeps on charging you by the minute. You can't get down, no, unless you pay. So these are kind of examples of risk with a paucity of time. Quickly, let us please understand. Once you understand the fundamentals of business, it is just like, any business guy who is doing simple business, trying to understand khata accounts. That much you understand, but then understand how is this technology treating this business? How does the process really automate? And then you say, is security built into where all can things go wrong? And that is what is risk management, vulnerability analysis. And once you start doing that, you say, oh my goodness, very simple. You go to your mobile banking software and try out things which normally you would not do. Think like a hacker. Try to do with that program all silly things. Ideally speaking, a good mobile banking software should not let you do any unauthorized or illegitimate move. But if you are able to do that, that's how, if you look at the cyber frauds today, the hackers understand the loopholes. Please understand, the hacker is not technology first. He thinks money first, and then evolves the technology or gets to do, copies it, does whatever, and gets his way out. So it is not that as if every hacker is some, fantastic technology guy. No, they simply copy the code, put it there. They know there is money here, simply get that out. So their mind works on how to get that money. Obviously, our mind needs to work on how to let them not have that money and protect it. And that is where today, if you see, as we go more and more digital, I'm sure none of you use cash today, I guess, right? You are either on GPay or on UPI or Beam or whatever, right? And if you see the generations forward, RBI has already launched, as you know, the cryptocurrency of India, which is the digital rupee. And future is going to be much less cash. When everything is going to be electronic, how and who will ensure that trust in these transaction systems? And that's exactly where the role of a non-technical person who understands reasonable good amount of technology from a common sense perspective, applies it to the business, and is able to give fantastic advice. The legal profession is going to be hugely impacted because privacy is a big thing today. Security is a big thing today. So obviously, every bank needs to make sure that the agreements are properly drafted. How do you make sure that you have a good lawyer who tells them, okay, these are the covenants which have to go into that. These are your risks under these acts. Because as we go more digital, the number of regulations which are technology regulations are increasing. You have the Information Technology Act in India. As Deepa was telling you, the Data Privacy Act anytime will be back again, right? You also have certain regulations, RBI regulations, IRDA regulations, all of them on technology. And the biggest problem today is most of these regulated entities, whether it is banks or insurance companies or SEBI regulated companies, they can't find professionals who can understand the business connect to technology, do the necessary testing or the audits, and tell them everything is secure or something is going wrong. So it is obviously important that you understand. So at the larger level, there are a lot of risks when you start using technology, become more and more dependent on technology. Imagine when you want to make that important call, your phone signal doesn't work. You know Murphy's law works there, right? When you want to make that call, you will not get the signal, right? Imagine your app misbehaves and tells you your account has zero balance. Would you not get a heart attack? Then say, oh, sorry, it was a software error. So you get back your life again, isn't it? So please understand, digital life today is inseparable from our lives today. And please understand, today's jobs that we are looking out, everything is going to die sooner. Go to the World Economic Forum and get the Future of Jobs Report 2020. You will see how many jobs are already dead or going to be dead within the near future. But as Deepa rightly said, there is a huge opportunity which is burgeoning there in terms of newer opportunities. I mean, somebody has to make sure security is by design built into all these business transactions that are through the systems. Somebody has to make sure wherever the connect happens between the organization system and the vendor system, it is secure. So there's a whole lot of things that need to go into that. There are an umpteen number of jobs. I'm sure you can find out more about that, but just in the interest of time, I would just stop here to take any questions. And of course, let me tell you, there is one very important angle, the taxation angle. Government is obviously very concerned that they'll lose the money because of jugaad businessmen who will somehow find a way out of all these electronics that you have on the IT website. IT, I mean information, income tax website. So they are looking to make sure you think extreme as a criminal and try to close all those loopholes. So you have a great career with regard to simple application functionality risk analysis. Then of course at an architecture level, designing the right kind of system where trust is woven right across. So there is a whole lot of jobs which are just waiting to be taken. All you need to do is take that very first step. Please understand, whether you are going to be a marketing professional or you are going to be a finance professional or a legal professional or a business leader, if you don't understand the digital, you have no career in the future. So the digital is the foundation of today's world. And there are a whole lot of jobs, waiting to be taken as technology rapidly, kind of transforms everything around us. And we are going to see that only happening at a greater pace. So thank you so much. I'll just stop here. Maybe we can take questions. Back to Abhishek.
Abhishek, I just want to add one thing to Vittal, and Priya actually also prompted me, right? The other part of it to, like in Vittal, when he was explaining, when he was articulating very nicely, he said that, the technology keeps changing, but security remains, right? So for the last 25 years, and Vittal must be of similar career, number of years, we are still very, very relevant, right? So, once you get into this particular field, it's all about upskilling, and it always remains. So the longevity of a cyber professional and a career in cyber is really, really longer. It 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 is here to stay.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you, Vittal sir. That was an extremely exciting talk because nowadays we have a lot of youngsters who use mobile phones and remain connected to the internet practically 24 hours of the day. Although it might be for learning purpose, they are exposed to so many threats. And you have aptly said that there is very little difference between our actual self and digital self today. We'll just request the participants to put their questions in the chat box, please, if you have any questions. And in the meantime, Vittal sir, I would like to ask you a question.
Please.
When you speak about the board meetings today, how much of the discussion is around the kind of cybersecurity that is required for the organization? Like you said, security at all layers, interwoven within the technology. And how much of the discussion is about cybersecurity compliance in terms of all the acts that you mentioned?
Very good question, Abhishek. Actually, I must say that in the last couple of years, in fact, I would urge you to take this report from Protivity, which talks about the top 10 business risks. Every year they do the survey. And the good thing is, last 3 to 4 years, you find digital risks, cyber frauds, innovation related risks in digital side, fintech risk, everything coming on top as discussions in the boardroom, which is a very good, healthy kind of thing to happen. Besides, as you rightly said, most of the regulators have put a mandate that the board needs to spend so much of time on cybersecurity, right? Not only that, in fact, I work with the RBI, and one of the fundamental requirements is every director of the bank got to attend a 2-day program, which is done by IDRBT, an arm of RBI, wherein they have to sit through the 2 days. Mind you, a director sitting through the 2 days of program. It is not easy. But at the end of the second day, I'm also one of the faculty there. I have the privilege of listening to some of these directors. I can tell you that many of them, they say, "Oh my goodness, this was a completely eye opener for us. We didn't know there is so much that we have to look at." So please understand, under all the acts, when anything goes wrong, the officer in default first is the director. So they have a huge responsibility to make sure that whatever needs to happen is happening correctly. They need to make sure they are directing that properly, getting the right feedback and ensuring that. So compliance is obviously there, and cybersecurity compliance is something which is now frequently discussed at board meetings, in the board reports, in every kind of document that you'll find that it is being discussed. I would actually urge Deepa, because she's very experienced in handling large boards. Deepa, would you like to share something from your experience, please?
So, So this is one part, Abhishek, just to answer your question, cyber compliance related, not just cyber, but compliance related is something that it's like bread and butter of the board to do it. It's business as usual for us to show compliances. But apart from that, what's board's mandate nowadays from a cybersecurity standpoint is in other areas, strategic areas. Let's take you're doing mergers and acquisitions, right? During the mergers and acquisitions, cyber plays a critical role for you from an evaluation standpoint, from a post-merger integration standpoint. If you're going ahead with an IPO, again, cyber comes into play. So for any particular strategic decision that an organization is taking, cyber becomes an integral part of that. And that is where the strategy part of it and guidance from a strategy standpoint is where cyber security comes into picture, right? And we were having a conversation. We were coming up with a report in terms of future of chair. In that, when we were talking, this was done by our chairman, and some of the conversation I was part of such the conversation with some of the chair person of boards, and cybersecurity came in two angles: one, compliance related; second one was in terms of strategy.
Okay, thank you so much. And Vittal sir, I think another parallel you might draw with the proliferation of cybersecurity law today might be the changes made to the Companies Act in 2013, which increased so many responsibilities for directors and also introduced the CSR paradigm. So we've got one question from Tawheed Ahmed, and I think it is coming from the concept of constancy of employment that you spoke about. He says, how can cybersecurity ensure constant learning for the new learners? Would you like to take that?
Very, very simple. You got to have curiosity in your DNA. Okay, as simple as that. You will find your answers automatically. Number one, let's please understand. When today you go to buy your new mobile, imagine the amount of research that you do. What new features, what this, that, what gizmo, octa processor, this processor, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Right? How many of us think about security features in a mobile? How many of us go and ask your vendor saying, tell me what all security features are there, what can go wrong with this mobile, what is wrong with this mobile? Do you study all those reports? So it starts with as simple as thing as that. How is for example, you're doing mobile banking or UPI transactions on your mobile. Now, have you ever thought about, is it secure? How do they make it secure? Where can I ask those questions? In fact, if you see, there are fantastic documents which are given out by RBI as well as by various banks on educating customers on how these things work. So I would think that, the fundamental thing for when you say learner is, you just have to have the thirst for, and the curiosity to somehow you should lose sleep when you see a new jargon. You should obviously look at all the attacks and see how do they do it. You have to think like a hacker and say, how did this guy do it? So the modus operandi kicks you into saying, oh my goodness, this is where the loopholes are when you're not looked at it. Because when we lock our doors at home, we go through the standard typical orthodox process, go 7 p.m., lock this door, do this, do this. A thief doesn't think like that. He will come through the window and you don't close your window. So that is where the entire, perspective needs to change, wherein you think of, like a criminal, if I can say, like a criminal, not do like a criminal. And you say, okay, how can this system be broken? And that is where the first kind of, the enthusiasm starts, and automatically you'll start searching for what you want. Having said that, as Deepa also pointed out, it is important that you keep yourself upgraded with regard to your skills, because, by the time we have finished this session, there is already some IoT gadget which is released. And just a year from now, you could have bionics. I'm sure you have seen that BBC ad where a girl plants this, the embedded chip and she's talking phone, right? So these are going to be reality in the future. Imagine a bionic, planted in you and there is a cyber attack and you start talking German. Well, that's great, but then it could be a big problem, right? So it's just a made out thing. But what I'm saying is, now this threat and the risks in cyber are not something which is just two-dimensional. It is now affecting us. So it is important that from a human security perspective, social security perspective, we have to take this responsibility and start moving the coin forward.
Thank you very much, sir. I hope even if a fraction of your enthusiasm rubs off on our learners, I'm sure they will go far and
I think
explore
Deepa has a very nice quote there. I
dimensions.
think everybody should adopt it. Always think CSR. You know, CSR
Right.
is corporate social responsibility. She has renamed it cyber social responsibility. I think that's a fantastic one.
Thank you, sir. Now it is time for me to introduce our third
Thank you,
speaker
sir.
for this webinar, Dr. A. Nagaratna. She is Associate Professor at the National Law School of India University in Nagarbhavi. She is also the coordinator of the Advanced Center on Research, Development and Training in Cyber Law and Forensics. She has very high academic distinctions, obtained her BAL in 1997 and LLB with 5 gold medals from Bangalore University in 1999. Subsequently completed her LLM in 2001 in commercial law, then completed PGD in IR and PM, and completed her doctorate on the topic of medical negligence from the University of Gulbarga. She is an awardee of the UGC NET for lectureship and JRF. And she's taught for 5 years from 2001 to 2006 at the KLE Society's Law College in Bangalore, and subsequently joined NLSIU in November 2006, where she is currently an associate professor. She has varied interests in criminal law, cyber forensics, and medical laws. And she has been trained on cyber forensics, including hard disk analysis, mobile forensics, network forensics, and live forensics from CDAC Trivandrum in 2015 and 16. Ma'am, it's a pleasure to have you with us. I hand over the mic to you now for your talk.
Thank you, sir. Uh, I think mine is a difficult most task after two speakers already talking about the theme. So mine would be a bit of an extension and repetition of what other speakers have said, especially Vittal, because I come from law background and he was talking about regulatory framework and need of compliance, which is cyber as well as legal in nature. So I'll also start from where I began. So I deliberately didn't choose science stream in my schooling because all my other family members were into science and I just wanted to do something different. So, and I always wanted to stay away from science. And therefore I took law and all, but I never thought I would get into cyber law, which is if not completely but partially technical in nature. That also helps us to understand how this field is growing, and as other speakers were indicating, almost everything is getting cyber in nature or digitalization, a lot of things affecting almost every field including law. So that made in fact me realize how I should venture into this field so as to bring some innovativeness in my law teaching. So when it comes to cybersecurity as a term, of course, it's a very comprehensive term, but it most importantly includes two components. One is cyber crime regulation. So when you look for careers, so you can also explore this field where through your skill, expertise, work, you can contribute towards regulation of cyber wrongs and cyber crimes. The other is about information security. So coming to the first one, cybercrime regulation. So that's where we can contribute to, the regulatory framework either individually as consultants, because, it is a harsh reality that the law enforcement agency is not completely trained when it comes to digital evidence, when it comes to accessing information on cyberspace, etc. So be it an investigating officer or a judicial officer, so either they need to be trained in this field or they need assistance of experts. So this is one domain that is not much explored in our country, where you need these experts through whom evidences can be extracted, evidences can be stored, evidences can be produced before the court. So I'm talking about digital evidence related domain. So where we require forensic experts. So one field one can consider is getting into digital forensics, or without completely getting into digital forensics, your hacking skill, etc., can be used for ethical hacking. So as of now, ethical hackers usually focus on industries only to show vulnerability, but their skill can also aid in getting access to evidence. Of course, there are legal issues on as to what if it turns out to be an offense of hacking, etc. But there are parameters set within the law. You are within those parameters, it's completely legal. Like how you call it as ethical, it can also be legal. So within all that law framework, this skill can be used to contribute towards crime regulation. Secondly, if it is someone who is passionate about, say, legal profession, but you're from technology background, or vice versa, I'm from law background but passionate about this technology, it's never too late to explore into the other domain. And I'm not just saying it based on some assumptions or imagination. I personally, I do know some of the IT experts who developed interest in legal aspects, did some courses. It can be a full-time course in law, or PG diplomas or diplomas in cyber law, cyber security, cyber forensics, or any course which has both techno-legal aspects. And once that's done, they've now got into cyber security consultancy. And when I say consultancy, it also includes consultancy based on legal aspects. As Mr. Mittal was mentioning, almost every law today requires you to show adherence, in a way or the other, related to, say, cyber security related adherence, be it Companies Act, or you take SEBI or Competition Commission, or any of these laws. So that's why there is a huge opportunity available. So much so that few years back, when Minister of Information Technology advertised for a post, it very clearly said, we are expecting someone who has done PG diploma in cyber law and cyber forensics. So the techno legal expertise is what is required. So similarly, when you come to any other field, though like I did my PhD in medical negligence, because this technology was also growing at that point of time, I devoted entire chapter on telemedicine only to show, I'm saying this only to show that every field is today becoming, digital in nature, or one way or the other getting affected with this technology, or this technology, has its impact on every field. So today, even if it is a lawyer, he might be a civil lawyer, criminal lawyer, or someone who is only handling contracts. All this also requires some skill in this technology, or some understanding of this basic, in the terms used by, again, Mr. Rittel, the jargons, someone who needs to simplify this. When you say jargons, not just technical terms, legal terms are also at times, too, technical in nature. So you need someone who is able to, understand the two, and, can make use of these understandings. So, for example, as I said, ministry also advertised posts like this. Or even if you, for example, see the recent amendments made to intermediary guidelines, internet intermediary guidelines by Minister of, again, IT. So it now mandates every internet intermediary platforms, especially social media platforms, and they call it as significant social media platforms, where users from India are more in number. So they're supposed to have in their office three important positions: chief compliance officer, nodal officer, and grievance officer. They don't say they have to be from law background or technology background, but the role that is expected, again, is something, which all about what we're talking. As a chief compliance officer, that officer is supposed to help his company to show compliance to all the regulatory framework, be it IT Act, intermediary guidelines, civil law, criminal law, whatever. And as a nodal officer, that officer is expected to assist law enforcement agency 24/7. When I say assist, it's also about like executing orders of courts. So many times as a layman, I'll not be able to do this, or just with law background, I'll not be able to do this. So I need that technical expertise. The third category of officer they're talking about is grievance officer. Some user of your online platform has a grievance. He writes a complaint. I should be able to handle that complaint appropriately, legally, etc. So like this, if you see the amendments happening to the law, or the requirements of ministries, regulatory platforms, they require people who are aware of this technology, if not completely into technical aspects, but at least basic understanding of technology, and is able to relate it to the requisite job profile, or for example, in these cases, the law. So that's one place. And even like today, we are expecting judges, police, prosecutors to have an understanding of this cyber technology, cyber forensics, cyber law. So almost every field requires knowledge in this. Now, the other term that comes under the definition of cybersecurity is information privacy. And information privacy also further includes data privacy, data protection. And I'm sure all of you would agree that there are a lot of again, there's a lot of demand for privacy professionals. Now, as a privacy professional, if I'm able to understand again, how I should show compliance to privacy rules, regulations. See, another thing, when we say privacy professional, we only consider that these are the people who cater to the need and demand of industries. But not so. The way privacy law is exploring today, developing today, we also would very shortly require privacy lawyers who can take up individuals' cases. For example, if you've noticed in Jammu and Kashmir, when internet access was not provided, there was a PIL filed. Okay, so similarly from many other places also, such cases are coming up because we've started talking, that right to life includes right to internet. When that's the way the court is interpreting, almost in every domain, we need professionals who are able to take up these kind of tasks, to work not just as a lawyer but also as a privacy professional who advocates privacy rights of individuals, or who is able to advise industries when it comes to compliance to data privacy. Most importantly, consultancy. As I said, we've seen privacy professionals getting into, say, consultancy, or technical experts getting into consultancy, where you're able to use your technical knowledge as well as your understanding of regulatory framework, compliance framework, etc. Another area which I feel is not explored much in India is research and publication, not research and development. That definitely, India is leading. That's also the reason why our Prime Minister says IT plus IT is equal to IT. Our information technology, our youths are, leading on this front by using this technology. But when I say research and publication, it's about writings, because especially when courts make law, they rely on experts writing. We may have a lot of experts in the field in our country, but there's hardly any writing that can be relied on as a source of law, because any expert's writing is a source of law. One. Secondly, even to teach, we hardly have good books coming from India. So I think publication is another domain where if someone already has the skill, should start writing more and more, because what you write is not just to be used as source of information. It can become training tools, teaching tools. Most importantly, it can become sources for lawmaking, law, legal revisions, etc. For example, see, if it is any other law like Indian Penal Code, Indian Criminal Law, we have writers. But when it comes to cyber laws of India, cyber security requirements in India, there's hardly much of writing coming from our domain. So research and publication is another area. And most importantly, just like me, teaching is another domain that you can explore. If you are keen on teaching, this is one area where we need a lot of teachers at every level: school level, college level, professional level, UG level, PG level. Just to give examples of why this is required. Very recently, even UGC has insisted. It's written to almost all the universities. It's been doing it. This has been done repeatedly, but again, there's a recent UGC circular which has mandated courses like cybersecurity to be taught in all universities. Similarly, if you see CBSE's policy, ICSC's policy, they also want to teach this component in the schools. As of now, maybe it's not mandatory course, but there is definitely teaching options available. You can teach it either from technical perspective or legal perspective or any other dimension that other two speakers were also indicating. So teaching is another important domain, and then training. Again, this law that I was referring to, Information Technology Act, Cyber of India, came in 2000. But even till date, we are only talking about training. That's because this law is such that, there's continuous changes in the field. The technology is also changing. As Mr. Vittal was saying, by the time we talk, maybe there's some other technical change also. So similarly, law also has to update, right? So it's consistently changing. So you need continuous training of stakeholders involved. It can be policymakers, it can be, again, courts, etc. For example, even highest of officers from the police department or any other investigation department or judiciary, they require continuous training. So at times, there's a dearth of experts who can give these training sessions. So teaching as well as training is another domain. Something that I've also noticed in some countries, and now that has started in India few years back, is about giving online assistance to, say, people who are victims of cyber crimes. It can be women or children or anyone else. So victim counseling, if you're not into like in the commercial aspect, but only want to explore a career, which is like this, social service oriented, etc. So victim online counseling or online victims counseling is another domain. So, and then other speakers have already mentioned. So when it comes to industries, companies, compliance is important. So compliance includes cybersecurity compliance. It also can include cybersecurity auditing. So professionals who are able to help industries in this domain is also, they're also important. So that's another area you can explore. So everything is getting digitalized, right? Which I just mentioned some time back, be it like, sale, purchase, online sale platform, auction platform. So even that person who designs websites, etc., is supposed to take care of like, IPR requirement, or is supposed to take care of data protection requirement. So all these, when we say security, it's not just about technical security, but also about regulatory frameworks, needs and necessities. So if we can become sensitive at this very, initial level when you're designing codes or designing websites, etc., then, I feel that's, in true sense, cyber security, because it's not different from security which is expected from law perspective. As the other two speakers were mentioning, there's a lot of expectations from people who are running institutions like management or directors. They are answerable today if something goes wrong in their department or their company. That's because law uses a term called due diligence. We don't expect you to make magic so that you can completely prevent cyber attacks. What we expect is, even as a privacy professional, we don't again expect you to prevent all kinds of access to data. What we expect is have that reasonable security practices in place. So if you have shown compliance to that, that means you've shown compliance to due diligence. Once you show due diligence, anything that goes wrong, for that you're not legally responsible. So that due diligence, you'll be able to better understand if you have a knowledge of this, field. And that's also another area where, people can give consultation or legal advisors or techno-legal advisors to help institutions establish this standard of due diligence. Right, so like this is a lot of things that gets associated with legal and techno legal aspects. I think that's one domain where you can expect more career opportunities coming up. Another example, in US today we see like a lot of lawyers themselves are handling digital evidence because they took this training in technical domain, like how to extract evidence from computers, etc. So that's another area that people who are not from technology background can also try. So that's in brief on as to what career opportunities can be expected. If there anything else that comes in form of questions, I'll take up. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Nagratna. You have enlightened the audience about a vast array of opportunities, in fact, in cybersecurity, just to encapsulate it, in the areas of compliance, information privacy, consultancy, teaching, training, and research and publication, all of which are emerging areas and all of which would be required in some way or the other. And how much of importance would it be for a person to have a legal background? Because if you're talking about students who are doing a diploma program in cybersecurity, then where would a legal background be necessitated for the student to contribute in the areas of gathering and presenting digital evidence? What is your view on that?
Right. So, if you have to practice before a court as a lawyer, then you might require, LLB, that's mandatory. There's some courts, some tribunals where even this is not mandatory. If you're able to understand that legal aspects, you're able to present the case before the court, it's enough. Otherwise, yeah, let's take it like, you need LLB to practice as a lawyer. But that doesn't mean that, you can learn about legal aspects and use it in different ways. For example, as you were mentioning, the forensic experts, I only know technology, I'm only extracting evidence, but from, let's assume, from a digital device, but the way it is extracted is not as per evidence law. Court will not accept it as an evidence, right? So I can myself learn about this legal requirements. I may not be a lawyer, I need not have to be a lawyer. So to become a legal consultant, an advisor, etc., you don't need LLB, but you need knowledge of law. Now your question can be like, why this knowledge of law? Maybe it's only required if you want to get into that career. But there is another reality that, a lot of courts cases have said that law is knowable. Any law you have to know, whether you want or not, but you're expected to know. So that's the requirement. It's always good to know about the law, and especially in a field if you're interested. So learn about cyber law. and you don't want to do LLB is okay, but do these diplomas or some courses, or self-learning is also possible. As again earlier speaker was saying, you just need that passion. You want to learn, you can learn, use it as consultant. Another example is digital contracts. There are very few people who are able to frame a digital contract, to design a digital contract like that. Now, coming back to again another issue like forensic evidences, though there is a bit of legal hinge, I'm sure I foresee that those laws will change. So if you see in the other countries, any expert in the domain can give expert opinion before the court. So you need not have to be a lawyer. And in fact, when it comes to India also, it's like these people from technology background who are in fact recognized as digital forensic experts, digital evidence experts. So without them, a lot of cyber crimes, in fact, cannot even be, handled in the court, I mean to say. So therefore, you don't have to do LLB. You don't have to be, a qualified lawyer. Unless you want to be a lawyer, otherwise you can still discharge a lot of other duties without doing a LLB, full-time LLB.
Okay, ma'am. We have one last question from Kaushik, who asks, can you suggest government certification in cyber laws and digital forensics?
Right. So a good question. So if it's government, government has of recently has come up with a lot of such training courses, but most of them are basically for public servants, government officers, etc. Like certified courses. Like initially we had it at our law school, National Law School, Bangalore. Then now, as of now, National Law University, Bhopal is doing. So some of the institutions are doing this, where you also see a legal component, which makes it different from other cybersecurity certification courses. So that's about government run programs. But in addition to this, we also have a lot of law schools, law colleges offering diplomas and postgraduate diplomas in cyber law, cyber forensics. You can Google, and you may feel I'm prejudiced, but our law school also offers one of the reputed course where we get a lot of people from CA background, technology background, non-technology background. So a lot of schools do it. So see what's more, easier for you in terms of accessibility, etc. You can enroll. A lot of courses which are online, offline. Yeah, we've had like a lot of privacy professionals doing these courses and getting into this aspect of profession.
Thank you very much, Professor Nagaratna. And with that, we have reached the end of today's webinar. On behalf of CySecK, I would like to extend our heartiest thanks to all our three distinguished speakers, Ms. Deepa Sheshadri from Deloitte, Mr. Vittal Raj from Kumar and Raj CA Firm and Pristine Consulting, and Professor A. Nagaratna from the National Law School of India University. I am sure that all the information that you have provided would be very, very useful in guiding our young minds into different career opportunities in cybersecurity. I see that Mr. Vittal Raj has his hand up. Okay.
No, I just wanted to, I saw one of the questions, Deepa has already answered that, but this is an important thing.
Right.
There was a question saying that where do you lodge the cyber crime complaints, right?
Right.
Of course, Madam Professor Agaratna, she would be the best person to answer that. But two things must be done from my perspective. Number one, of course, if it's a loss of money, you must take action immediately. Time is the essence. The first point of contact should be your bank, because banks generally provide for a 48-hour reporting time within which you get covered under insurance anyway, right? The immediate next call should be to 1930, which is a national cybercrime number, and give them the case. There'll be an officer who will listen to you and call you back generally. The third is there is detailed complaints which you can lodge on cybercrime.gov.in. Deepa has already put up the URL there. So you must do that. And all this time is the essence. The moment you learn of this, whatever has happened with you, especially loss of money or anything that's very sensitive to human life, please immediately make sure you go across these channels. Dr. Nagaratna, I would request, you are an expert in this area, to maybe add anything that you would think is relevant.
You already said most important points, but in addition, if you think it's in form of a crime that the cyber wrong is committed. So if you feel it's a cyber crime that's committed, of course, there are online platforms where you can file online complaints, especially now of recently last few years. Minister of Home Affairs is exploring into this domain because there's a difficulty in filing FIRs with police stations. So online complaints can be filed, especially when it comes to cyber crimes against women and children. That's more seriously dealt with. So online complaint is enough to begin with investigation. Otherwise, the nearest police officer, initially we weren't clear, should you go to police station or to cybercrime police station, but now law is very clear, any nearest police station. Over there, if it is of a particular threshold, the fraud is of some threshold, etc., they'll hand over the case to cyber cell. So like that. So you can also approach police stations. If you have all the evidence available with you, don't want to waste time in going to the police, then you can directly file a private complaint before the court. It can either be civil complaint or criminal complaint. It varies from case to case. So directly going to the court is another option. But of course, the easiest one for a common man is to at least make an online complaint or use those phone numbers where you're allowed to call. For example, recently in Karnataka also they come with some phone numbers which is specified for giving information related to cybercrime. So that's also possible.
If I may add, not to forget, you have to practice good cyber hygiene. Now you keep all your doors open in the home and say thief, 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 it is not going to work. So in the apps, that's what you do. Keep on connecting every app. The same phone you use for mobile banking, you keep on, doing all kind of tweets or, sharing on WhatsApp. There are people who are looking at it. Let's speak clear. And if you are sharing certain personal details, it is today very easy to build your entire psychological profile by simply using certain tools. I can know everything about you. I can track your location. I can do everything about that. So the first thing is maintain cyber security hygiene and make sure you don't give an opportunity to any of these hackers to really run behind you, because running behind them is not an easy task. Most of the times, fortunately, if you're doing, within the time, you get back the money. But in many other cases, as Dr. Nagaratna said, in some of the cases where it involves intimidation or any of those kinds, it can be a long drawn affair. So first, beware, do the right things. If you don't do the right things, be prepared for the right things not happening to you. Okay. So.
Right. Thank you, sir. I see that Priya has her hand up.
Yeah, before I think I'll hand it over to Karthik and you for concluding. I just wanted to make one statement to all the people here. First of all, thank you so much for the experts in this session. The talk was so useful. I'm sure all the learners who are there listening to this would find it useful. One thing I just want to stress upon is about the longevity, which Deepa's talked about, the cybersecurity career. As you can see on the panel who are speaking, most of them are fairly experienced. And for just talking about my own case, I was just in cybersecurity for the last 5-6 years. The last portion of my career was in cybersecurity. So with just 5-6 years of cybersecurity, and I'm out of the corporate career for four years almost, I keep getting a headhunter call every week. So that is the demand for cybersecurity. So if you all pursue a career in cybersecurity, you will be relevant for a long periods of time. You'll never be thrown out of the job. So that's something that you could go take it home. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Abhishek. I just have to add, because something that Priya said. Actually, I've been planning for my retirement, but believe me, the number of proposals that are coming to me have doubled, and it becomes very difficult for me to say no, because there are very few professionals in the market who understand both sides of the coin. So, in fact, we get a lot of mainly non-technical people who come to us for training, and let me tell you, many of them are in great demand. They are very well placed, and I mean, the kind of packages that they are drawing, I envied them. I said, Appa, I should have taken that place maybe today, right? But then, of course, if I was in those days, so that's the kind of demand. So, retirement becomes difficult, at least for another 25 years, as IISc says in their survey. There is going to be a huge demand for this cyber security, cyber law, cyber forensic professionals. Is going to be a huge, huge demand. We are just in the start of the 4th to the 5th industrial revolution. Things are going to be absolutely crazy when it comes to digital. all these flying the saucers that we saw only in fintech movies are all going to be, you know, real, no ski stuff, real things going to happen. Metaverse is mind-boggling. It is going to be the biggest explosion which is going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, and that's going to be very risky.
Thanks, Vittal.
So thank you, Mr. Vittalraj. And once again, on behalf of CySecK, thanks to all three of you, Ms. Deepa Sheshadri, Mr. Vittalraj, and Professor A. Nagaratna. I'm sure all those who have joined us live and who have joined us on this call will have made a note of all the different fields in which they have very exciting and long-term, if I can say, career opportunities. For more such exciting webinars on the topic of cybersecurity, please keep watching our Twitter handle at the rate CYSECKCOE. That's at the rate CYSECKCOE. Thank you. With that, we'll end this call. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Sheikh. Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
so
Thanks,
much.
Priya.
Thanks. Bye.